Imagine waking up one morning, stepping out for a quiet walk, and crossing paths with a man who believed he was the real-life Freddy Krueger. In September 2004, London and Sussex descended into chaos. Over 3 days, Daniel Gonzalez, a 24-year-old man obsessed with horror films, embarked on a killing spree so brutal it shocked Britain to its core. Inspired by a nightmare. On Elm Street in Halloween, Gonzalez told psychiatrists he wanted to know what it felt like to be a famous serial killer. He armed himself with knives and set out on a mission, not for money, not for revenge, but for fame. "I just wanted to kill as many people as possible," he later said. His first victim was Marie Harding, a 73-year-old grandmother stabbed to death while walking her dog in West Sussex. Hours later, he attacked another man, leaving him fighting for his life. By the next morning, Gonzalez was in North London, where he killed Kevin Malloy, a 46-year-old man stabbed repeatedly in the chest. But he wasn't done. The next day, he broke into the home of Derek and Jean Robinson, a quiet, elderly couple, and butchered them both in their living room. He laughed about the murders afterward, calling them the best thing I've ever done. When police finally arrested him, Gonzalez showed no remorse. In his chilling confession, he said he had been driven by voices that told him to kill to become a legend. But experts soon agreed this wasn't insanity, it was evil. At his trial, the judge called Gonzalez a drug-crazed killer inspired by the fantasy of horror. He was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2006. But in 2007, the so-called Freddy Krueger killer took his own life in his prison cell, using the sharp edge of a broken CD. This is the story of Daniel Gonzalez, the man who turned horror movies into murder and fantasy into reality. A tale of delusion, violence, and the chilling question, what happens when obsession meets madness? Classification, spree, killer characteristics, inspired by horror films. Number of victims for date of murder, September 15th, 2004, date of arrest. Next day, date of birth, 1980. Victims, profile Marie Harding, 73. Kevin Malloy, 6. Derek Robinson, 5. And his wife Jean, 60. Method of murder, stabbing with knife. Location London/Sussex, England, United Kingdom status. Sentenced to life in prison, 2006. Committed suicide in prison by slicing his wrists with the edges of a CD case on August 9, 2007. Daniel Gonzalez, 1980. 9 August 2007 was a serial killer who killed 4 people and injured 2 others during a 3-day killing spree across London and Sussex in September 2004. His mother had previously written a letter to her MP criticizing the fact that a serious incident had to occur before he could receive mental help. In her letter, she rhetorically asked, "Does my son have to commit murder to get help?" Reporters have tried to say that he feigned mental illness long before the murders. He did in fact suffer for many years. Gonzalez was inspired by horror films such as A Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th to become a famous serial killer. He went on a drug-fueled stabbing spree, attacking the elderly and infirm, writing about his experiences in letters to himself as Zippy, his past nickname. His letter said how much he enjoyed the murders, one of the best things I've done in my life, and how similar he was to Freddy Krueger. Victims. On September 15, 2004, Gonzalez told 61-year-old Peter King, who was walking his dog with his wife in Hilsea, Portsmouth, that he was going to kill him. He was fought off and fled to Hove, where he stabbed 76-year-old Marie Harding whilst wearing a hockey mask, Ayla Jason Voorhees. After this, he returned to his home in Woking. He concluded that the reason for his failure to kill Mr. King was because his knife was too small. He traveled to Tottenham, where he drank until the early hours of the morning. At 5:30 a.m., he left 46-year-old Kevin Malloy for dead, after stabbing him in the face, neck, and torso with a pair of large knives he had stolen from a department store. At 7:00 a.m., he made a forced entry into the Hornsey house of Kumis Constantino, but was fought off after stabbing his arm. By 8:00 a.m., he was in Highgate, where he randomly tried to gain access to houses. He succeeded in murdering a geriatric couple, the Robinsons, an experience he claimed was orgasmic. He was arrested at a tube station after a decorator saw him naked and covered in blood in the Robinsons' house. He saw the Columbine killers as heroes and intended to perpetrate a similar crime to theirs. Trial. Gonzalez tried to claim that he was not guilty by reason of insanity, although this was rejected. He was given 6 life sentences, and the trial judge recommended that he should never be released. It was revealed that he was a habitual drug user who had run naked down a street whilst drunk a week before he was arrested. In February 2007, the European Court of Justice began a review of lifelong imprisonment to determine whether such sentences amounted to a violation of human rights. If the court outlaws lifelong imprisonment, then all prisoners serving whole life sentences in European prisons would have their cases recalled to court for a new minimum term to be set. But Gonzalez was found dead in his cell at Broadmoor Hospital on 9 August 2007. He was still only 26 years old and was believed to have committed suicide. Most dangerous inmate. 11th March 2006. The serial killer, who wanted to be like Freddy Krueger, was yesterday branded the most dangerous inmate ever seen in notorious Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital. Daniel Gonzalez, 25, was put in the special care unit, the highest security ward in the country, after stabbing 6 people in 3 days. He terrified other patients by reenacting how he knifed his victims, 4 of whom died, and he tried to kill himself by chewing veins and arteries in his arm. He even attacked his mom and gran, grabbing their hair when they visited the Old Bailey herd. Broadmoor Berks has been home to such killers as Yorkshire Ripper Peter Sutcliffe and Moore's murderer Ian Brady. Consultant forensic psychiatrist Edward Petch told jurors he first saw Gonzalez when he was admitted there. He said, "I have never seen anything like this. The degree of disturbance was without parallel in my experience. This man was at further risk of extreme, unprovoked violence. He would attack and punch and sometimes self-harm. I've never seen anyone bite himself with the ferocity he did. It was a serious attempt on his life." He said Gonzalez of Woking, Surrey, had schizophrenia and an antisocial personality disorder. Gonzalez knifed victims because he wanted to be like horror film character Freddy Krueger, it is claimed. 4 died, 1 each in Tottenham, North London, and Worthing, West Sussex, plus a retired couple in Highgate, North London. Gonzalez denies 4 counts of murder but admits manslaughter. The trial continues. Serial killer found guilty, March 16, 2006. London. A horror film fanatic who wanted to be an infamous serial killer was found guilty on Thursday of murdering 4 strangers during a 3-day rampage through southern England. Daniel Gonzalez, 25, compared his murders to those in the film Halloween and told police he wanted to know what it would be like to be Freddy Krueger for the day, referring to the crazed killer from the A Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Gonzalez, who also said he wanted to carry out a massacre, Similar to the 1999 killings at Columbine High School in the United States, began his murderous spree on September 15, 2004. He traveled to Hillsea on the South Coast and tried to cut the throat of a 67-year-old man who was out with his wife walking his dog. The man fought him off, but later that afternoon Gonzalez headed up to Woking near London and stabbed to death Marie Harding, 73, as she was out walking in a secluded area. Early the next day, he used 2 knives to stab to death 46-year-old Kevin Malloy, who had been out drinking in a pub in North London. Just an hour later, he broke into a house not far away and tried to kill the occupant. However, he ran away after the men put up a fierce struggle. Shortly afterwards, he bought some new knives and then went to the home of Derek Robinson, 75, and his wife Jean, 60, and stabbed them both to death. He was arrested a few hours later at a station. Hearing voices. Gonzalez, who had admitted 2 counts of attempted murder, had denied murder, saying he was a schizophrenic and had been under the command of voices. But a jury at the Old Bailey took just over an hour to find him guilty of murder. We suggest that Gonzalez is a psychopath who killed because of the callous, cold person that he is, said prosecutor Richard Horwell. He wanted to kill for his own personal pleasure. During the trial, the court heard how Gonzalez had told doctors he went on the rampage because he was bored. I watched horror movies and that all the time, fantasy and not real, and that he had told detectives. I just thought about doing it, man. What would it be like just to be maybe Freddy Krueger or something like that just for one day? Police called his murders shocking and brutal. Gonzalez admitted he was an individual intent on killing. He was clever and manipulative and did not want to accept responsibility for what he had done, said Detective Chief Inspector Dave Cobb. He wanted to be remembered as a famous serial killer, but I hope he is forgotten and that we only remember his victims and the families that survived them. He will be sentenced tomorrow and faces a mandatory life jail term. Family pleased at trial outcome. 18th March 2006. The family of a grandmother murdered by serial killer Daniel Gonzalez say the outcome of his trial has restored their faith in British justice. Gonzalez from Woking, Surrey, was handed 6 life sentences on Friday for killing Marie Harding and 3 other people and for 2 attempted murders. Mrs. Harding, 73, was murdered in 2004 in Southwick, near Hove, West Sussex. We are pleased the right result has come out of this terrible situation, her family said after the trial. Mrs. Harding worked part-time in the ticket office at Brighton and Hove Albion FC's Queen's Road ground. Minutes silence. She was walking home from her daughter Julie Harris's house when she was stabbed to death. The family are all avid supporters of the club, which held a minute's silence for Mrs. Harding a few days after her death in September 2004. Her husband Jim, Mrs. Harris, and her husband Andrew and their children Daniel and Natalie issued a joint statement. Together with the other families involved, we have waited a long time for this outcome, they said. Mission to kill. Our faith in British justice has been restored. We would like to thank our friends and families for their support throughout this dreadful time. They also thanked Sussex Police and their family liaison officers. The Old Bailey trial heard that Gonzalez had set out on a mission to kill at least 10 people and become famous as a serial killer. His other victims were Derek Robinson, 75, and his wife Jean, 68, who were attacked in their home in Highgate, London, and Kevin Malloy, 46, who was murdered in a North London street. The men who survived his attacks were Peter King, 61, in Portsmouth, Hampshire, and Kumis Constantin, 59, in North London. The one that got Hawaii, 23 March 2006. Serial killer Daniel Gonzalez got off a train in Worthing, bought a knife, and followed a man with the intention to kill. This unknown man had a lucky escape from Gonzalez, who on Friday was given 6 life sentences at the Old Bailey for knifing to death 4 people, including Southwick pensioner Marie Harding. He also attempted to murder 2 others. It was during police interviews the 25-year-old killer told officers that when he got off the train at Worthing on September 15, 2004, at 1:20 p.m., he bought a knife in the town. He said, "I was walking down these alleyways with a knife waiting to carve up someone. The knife was 6 inches long. It was like a butcher's knife used to carve up bits of meat. I was going to the first place I could to kill someone." He said he had followed a man in Worthing but did not attack him because he turned into a main road. Gonzalez added, "I felt I was on a mission to kill as many people as possible." After his failed attempt to find a victim in Worthing, he got back on a train to Fishersgate. There he walked to a remote area of North Southwick where he hid in some bushes. Wearing a hockey mask, he jumped out and stabbed 73-year-old Marie Harding to death as she walked along a track to her home in Highdown, Southwick. It is believed he used the knife he bought in Worthing, which has never been found. On Friday, Gonzalez, who wanted to become a notorious serial killer, showed no emotion as Judge Ann Goddard recommended that in his case, life should mean life. A relative of one of his victims clapped in the public gallery and shouted, "Goodbye," as he was led to the cells. Gonzalez from Woking, Surrey, will start his sentence at Broadmoor Maximum Security Hospital, where he is considered one of their most dangerous patients. He was convicted by a jury on Thursday of murdering 2 women and 2 men and knifing 2 other men in random attacks over 3 days in September 2004. Jurors decided he was a drug-crazed, cold-blooded murderer and not suffering from mental illness, as he claimed. He stabbed 73-year-old Mrs. Harding to death in a remote lane in North Southwick as she walked home from visiting her daughter on a sunny afternoon. Gonzalez's ambition was to be a famous serial killer of at least 10 people in a campaign of murder stretching from the south coast of England to London. He wanted his 15 minutes of fame. He was high on drugs, bored, and wanted to kill as many people as possible. He later confessed to killing all his victims, saying, "I am sorry. I just want to get locked up. In fact, I should go into the electric chair." But when he settled into life at Broadmoor, the maximum security hospital, he told a psychiatrist he still had time on his side. "I think I will be out in 8 to 10 years. Gonzalez, who told police he wondered what it would be like to be the Nightmare on Elm Street's Freddy Krueger for a day, feigned mental illness long before the murders. After his arrest, he again tried to manipulate psychiatrists into believing that voices commanded him to kill. Richard Horwell, prosecuting, said that the excuse of being under the control of voices is often fabricated. It is a caricature of mental illness. He has fabricated such symptoms in the past. Mr. Horwell told the jury Gonzalez was a psychopath who killed because of the callous, cold person he is. It is his very personality that led him to kill, disinhibited by a cocktail of drugs and alcohol. Gonzalez's defense had claimed he was suffering from auditory hallucinations, voices commanding him to kill, which diminished his responsibility in law. Serial killer appeal bid refused. 6 July 2006. A man who killed 4 people in London and Sussex and tried to kill 2 others has been refused leave to appeal against his life means life sentence. Daniel Gonzalez, 26, of Woking, Surrey, was given 6 life sentences at the Old Bailey after being convicted in March. His lawyer said a 30-year tariff should have been imposed because of his young age and mental health problems. Judges refused the bid, saying Gonzalez took pleasure in cruel and premeditated killings and could attack again. When Gonzalez was sentenced for the knife attack killings, which happened in 2004, Judge Ann Goddard told him that in his case, life should mean life. The trial had heard that Gonzalez of South End Avenue wanted to be remembered as a famous serial killer. Timeline of Gonzalez's killings. Thursday, 16th March 2006. A man who said he wanted to become a notorious serial killer has been found guilty of stabbing to death 4 people within 3 days. The BBC News website looks at how Daniel Gonzalez, 25, killed 2 men and 2 women in a series of attacks in Sussex and North London. 15 September 2004, 11:30 GMT. Gonzalez attacks a couple with a steak knife on a pathway in Portsmouth. Peter King suffers non-life-threatening injuries. 15 September 2004, 16:20 GMT. Body of Marie Harding found on a footpath in Southwick near Worthing in West Sussex. She died from stab wounds to the neck and back. 17 September 2004, 05:30 GMT. Body of Kevin Malloy found in Tottenham High Road, North London. He died of stab wounds to the chest, which had been inflicted with a knife stolen from a department store. 17 September 2004, 0700 GMT. Kumis Constantinou confronts a man armed with a large kitchen knife in his home in North London. He was stabbed and bitten by Gonzalez, who only ran off when Mr. Constantinou's wife ran outside, screaming for help. 17 September 2004, 8:05 GMT. Police called to a house in Makepeace Road, North London, where the bodies of Derek and Jean Robinson had been found. They were pronounced dead at the scene. 17 September 2004, 1200 GMT. Gonzalez arrested at Tottenham Court Road Tube Station after buying a ticket with a blood-stained 20 note. And that was the horrifying story of Daniel Gonzalez, the man who blurred the line between fantasy and reality, turning his obsession with horror movies into a living nightmare. He wanted fame. He wanted to be remembered like Freddy Krueger. But what he left behind was not infamy. It was devastation. 4 innocent lives lost. Families destroyed. A nation haunted by the realization that a killer could emerge not from the shadows, but from the imagination itself. In prison, Gonzalez showed no remorse. He boasted about his crimes, calling them fun. He even reenacted his murders for other inmates, a chilling reminder that his mind was far beyond saving. Just 2 years later, he took his own life in his cell at Broadmoor Hospital, carving his wrists open with the jagged edge of a CD. But even in death, one question remains. Was Daniel Gonzalez a product of evil, or of a system that saw the warning signs too late? If this story shook you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime documentaries exploring the darkest corners of the human mind. This was the tale of Daniel Gonzalez, the man who turned fiction into murder.